It's Rock 30, Bill and Jay's excellent podcast, with your hosts, Billy Quinton and Jay Odom. Our special guest this evening is Rockwall ISD School Board Trustee Stan Britton. Let's roll.
All right, we are back. It is a special edition of Rock 30, Bill and Jay's excellent podcast. This has been put together pretty quickly. We're still in our jammies, I think, under the table.
We were talking Saturday night. You know what would be cool?
Yes. We thought we were on hiatus till January. We are not, because we got a big-time election coming up. And for locally here in Rockwall, it's the school bond that is of a lot of talk. And we want to clear up a few things.
Yeah.
So, and we have Stan Britton joining us, Rockwall School Board Trustee. How many years you been there now, Stan?
Just finished year number 2, and actually January will be first time going back for re-election.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, and he was elected because of his excellent graphics.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, where's my camera? Cue-ball design, cueballdesign.com.
Yet another proud client of Cue-ball Designs. Yeah.
Not the Stan's work ethic and his platform got him elected. It was solely graphics.
It was graphics.
Yeah.
The signs.
Politics is all image.
It's all image. It's all image.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. I'll get you elected.
I have Billy to thank for that.
I got Stan elected. Come on.
If you
I can do anything. Let me put it to a better perspective. I got Russ Childers elected to school board a few years ago.
Get on the bus with Russ.
Yes, get on the bus with Russ.
There's a theme there.
Yeah.
You get on
yeah. So anyway, there you go. All right. But anyway, we have a lot of people talking. Early voting, we're filming this on Monday, October 21st, and we hopefully have it out tonight. If not, it'll be out tomorrow. But early voting has started, and we wanted Stan to come in, and we wanted to clear up a few things about the school bond, because I know a lot of people have questions about it. And we also want this is not a rah you need to go vote for the school bond podcast, because we're going to have a lot of questions, and we've got questions from those that have questions about it and may not be voting for it. They are against it. And
there's a lot of people in the community, smart people, knowledgeable people, who are against it. So I feel like we want to get their major points heard and let you respond.
Sure.
I think that's what
we originally thought about getting somebody for and against, but it was so quick we had to throw it together, and we feel like the best option was Stan here. Stan, as a school board member, is just here for factual purposes, right?
And I want to say too, we've had, obviously we had the bond committee, which we'll get into in a little bit, that spent most of last spring looking at what the district needed to do, and so a lot of the pointed questions to kind of cut through a lot of what people are asking from the board's perspective, and I can't speak on behalf of the whole board, but for myself, we were asking those questions back in the spring. Okay, do we really need this? And is this important? Is that important? What does this accomplish? What does this not accomplish? Like, hey, how is the public going to perceive this? And so a lot of the, I hate to say opposition, a lot of the questions are things that the board did go through and look at with the help of the bond committee. And so it's not, this is not like, hey, cover our eyes and just, let's push this out there. Like I particularly asked district leadership a lot of hard questions prior to coming to an authorization for the bond.
That's a good point to hear. A lot of the comments are there's been a lack of transparency.
Yeah.
That's a big theme.
And I can, speaking again like you, as a bond committee member, I was on that bond committee, we asked a lot of questions too. It was not let's just come in, nod our head, and go. We met, I believe, 8 times every 2 weeks. In detail, it was presented very well to us, and then we met in small groups. We went over everything, and there were questions asked, and there were things that we all would acknowledge. Each person, is this something that's really important or not? And they would go to each person when we've gotten our small groups and talk about, here's what we're proposing, what do you all think? So this has been a very vetted process to get where we're at. And so it's not something that the school district just said, hey, what if we went and got another building, or whatever.
Let's just spend $1 billion bucks.
Exactly.
No big deal. So I thought it'd be good to start out in layman's terms, middle school terms, for somebody like me. What is this bond?
Sure.
It's in sections. Why is it in sections?
Yep.
What's included in each section? Just a summary of what is this what does $1 billion buy?
Yeah, it's a great question. So 4 propositions on the ballot. You'll see them at the end. I actually voted today, Monday. You'll see them at the very end after all of the candidates. There's the 4 propositions there, and that's because of state law. The state requires that you break it up into propositions based on what you're asking for in those propositions. And so your general building facility construction has to be its own. And so that's everything that you see in Prop B there. Prop C for us is technology, which technology has to be in its own proposition, and then athletics has to be in its own proposition. And so that's Proposition D. And then you have the Proposition A, which is the VATER, and that stands for Voter Approved Tax Ratification Election. And that is because the district is asking to raise the tax rate. And anytime you have an increase, the taxpayer has the right to vote on it, protected right to vote on it. We're putting that out as its own proposition, and basically giving the taxpayer the right to look at it, to review it, and to say, yes, I'm for it, or no, I'm not.
That's a state law.
It's a state law.
I want to, not to correct you immediately, Stan, but it's voter-approved tax ratification election. You called it the VATER. I heard Dale Downham call it the VAT tray.
VAT tray,
and I
yes.
feel like you need to recheck your sources.
You're correct.
Yeah.
And
it is the VATER.
Yes,
it is the
yes.
VATER.
I ask for Dale's forgiveness, but no, it's
He
it's
went to
also
the football games. It's the VAT tray.
it's also very clear, and it bears repeating, that it is a ratification election. The taxpayer is ratifying. They are approving what the Board of Trustees is putting forward that we're asking for. Because if you got your tax statement in the mail over the last week, they went out on the 15th. If you got your tax statement in the mail, you'll notice the rate is already on the 2024. We're saying, hey, we're asking you to approve that. If it, for some reason, it doesn't, then everything will be walked back to what the rate would be without the VATER. So,
Okay. Feeling a little cocky putting that in there already.
no, it's. I mean, and I think it's really important for people to understand. We're doing everything the way that the state lays out that you have to do it.
Right.
That's one thing where, and I can say now, completing 2 years, almost about to be 3 years on the board, when we start talking about something, if it's not the first question we ask, it's one of the first questions that we ask and that I ask is, okay, what are the guidelines here? What are the state law guidelines? And so we are only doing it this way because this is the way the state requires it to be done. There's nothing nefarious going on. Nobody's trying to hide anything or be conspiratorial. We're literally just doing it the way that the state says you have to do it. The state also says that you have to put it in the bond. This is a property tax increase, whether it has an impact or not. And so, and then it's worded in such a way that it makes it look like it's more of an increase than it really is. Like Proposition A, the language on the ballot says this is a 17% increase to the maintenance and operations tax rate. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit, but that's one of the buckets. Overall, if you look at the total tax rate, it's about 11.7 cents percent increase. And that was a big part of what the board looked at as well. It's like, what exactly are we asking the taxpayer to get into here?
Right.
We don't want to get into something that's just outrageous. And, and we'll talk more about kind of the methodology behind that in a minute.
And when you talk about the VATER, to be, remind everybody, this is increase in teacher pay. And we all, I think, I would venture to guess 99.9%. I just don't want to say 100 because there's always an oddball.
Sure.
Feel that teachers are underpaid.
Sure.
I don't think there's a person out there that feels like teachers are getting exactly what they deserve.
Not only generally, but specifically in Rockwall.
In Rockwall,
ISD.
because in general, I think we feel that way. And most of them. But
we have the graphic that shows that. I mean, I think it's important for people to see it here. That we are historically the second lowest. There it is. I mean, we're teacher salary comparisons. If you look at a teacher who's brand new, that starting salary, if you look at a teacher with 6 to 10 years experience, 11 to 20, and then all the way up, our average salary comes out to second lowest among our peer districts around the area.
All of these districts their teacher makes more than us.
Makes more than us.
Except
yeah.
Roy, yeah,
Except for Roy City.
Yeah, Roy City.
And the other thing that is really important here is all of those districts already have a Vader passed.
Yeah.
They've already passed a Vader to pay their teachers more. And so we're paying our teachers at the bottom, and we're doing it with less money. We're asking for this so that we can, kind of raise the tide of teacher salaries here so that we can bump up that list.
Okay. And this proposition is estimated at like about $16 million.
Yep.
And to put this in perspective, I'll go personal here real quick. If you look at the 6 to 10 years experience, Rockwall teacher makes $61,510 a year. My son is interviewing for a job and will get about that as an entry level.
Yeah.
And these are teachers that have been doing it 6 to 10 years.
Yeah. And it also, to that point, and I don't remember the exact percentage off the top of my head, but we have a large percentage of teachers in Rockwall ISD that have 10 or more years experience. Large percent. I want to say it's in the 40s that have more than 10 years of experience. And then a lot of them who are right there in that 6, 7, 8, 9 years of experience. And so this is the lion's share of our teachers are living in that band right there.
Or leaving the district to make more
go make more money. That's right.
And I could go again. My wife, Autumn, taught here for 10 years.
Yep.
Left because she now went to the Garland School District, was offered a job there, and makes $20,000 more, and just leaving there and just going to another one, $20,000 more. Yeah. And the big thing for teachers, I was a teacher for 3 years, and I did not get into it because of retirement, because I wouldn't have been teaching long enough. But the one selling point of a low salary for a majority of these teachers, public teachers, is you will have a nice retirement. A lot of this, your salary and everything, you'll have a nice retirement plan. But if you're not getting raises, if you're not, your salary's not increasing, that plan goes a little awry.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, listen, if I can get 20 grand extra
and
put that towards retirement, not all that, but the percentage that you normally have, you have to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I know of a story, and I can't name names, but I know of a story of a teacher who 24 years of experience was here in Rockwall and left to a neighboring district and is making about that amount of money more because she's considering retirement, and her years of service and her age will allow her to retire. And, she's looking at it from that standpoint. And a lot of people don't understand how teacher retirement's calculated. They get the average of their highest 5 paid years. So they'll look back across all of your years of service, and they'll take your highest 5 years, and you get a percentage of your highest 5 paid years. And so you've got teachers, and what happens is you get to that 11 to 20 or 21 and beyond, and they start looking at, well, gosh, I'm 10% below, I'm 5% below, I'm 8% below. If I can go work for 5 years in a district where maybe I have to cross the bridge or go to the north, and it's going to change my retirement by that amount of money, it's a no-brainer.
I can say, just teaching for 3 years, that my retirement total ended up being $45.50. And so,
that's so awesome.
In this discussion, we're talking about the hardship on teachers. The real hardship is on our students, getting less experienced, poorer quality teachers who will work for the second lowest salary in the area, while our better teachers, like your wife, have to leave.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing,
our
too.
Our kids are losing.
One thing that I want to emphasize, too, and I know some administrators have said this, too, is if you look at the numbers of teachers leaving Rockwall, it's probably right along with a lot of other districts where they're leaving. But the thing with Rockwall is, let's look at the quality of teachers that are leaving. And that's the thing that's hurting Rockwall. Yeah. We're losing a lot of quality teachers going to other districts.
Yeah, and I think it just bears mentioning that is the complexion of your school district, is the experience of your teachers, right? It's having teachers who have taught their subject, or they've got years of experience where they'll whoever's coming into their classroom, they're prepared for the challenge, they're prepared for the year, the expectation, and they're putting out a product in their classrooms where this kid is not just learning French or learning math or they're learning that teacher's experience with that subject for that amount of time. And I had a teacher, and I'll never forget this. I had a teacher when I was in high school. We were talking about public education, and she said, I know a lot of teachers who've taught for 25 years. The problem is some of those teachers taught the same year 25 times. And only a few of those teachers have grown and learned and expanded what they're teaching, where they've truly taught a new, it may be new concepts, it may be new material, 25 years. Mm-hmm. And it's the difference between teaching 1 year 25 times or truly teaching for 25 years.
And that's exactly it. And these good teachers, these great teachers are the ones that grow with the technology, they grow with the culture, and with the students. And I know with my wife, and even my personal experience, but my wife, I have to keep bringing an example of these kids she teaches, she still is involved with at times outside the classroom. After she's done teaching, they still call for advice. They still want her to be a part of things. And she taught kindergarten forever. For 25 years, I believe. Those kids have grown up and done, she watched them grow up. But now
ISD Teacher of the Year at one point.
Yes,
I remember her driving that car around.
We got the free, we got the free Prius, and so that was fun. It was tough to wind up the rubber band to get it to go, but other than that, it was really cool.
I wanted to know, did you return it in good shape, or did she dog it? Or?
Like a rental car?
Let me just say this. It's not built for street racing. I can tell you it wasn't.
Of course I got the insurance.
Yes. But anyway, the whole thing comes down to those are the types of teachers you have in a ton of districts, definitely Rockwall. And like what Stan's saying, you also, like any profession, you're going to have those that come in, they do their job, and they leave. I would venture to say a majority of our teachers in Rockwall are invested. Who isn't invested if you're not getting a good salary? The reason you're doing it is because of the passion you have for it.
And to that point, we have about 65% of our teacher workforce that lives here in Rockwall as well. And so that's critical. They don't just teach your kids here and then go somewhere else. They live here. They're buying groceries at the same store you're buying groceries at. My mother-in-law was a school nurse in a neighboring district for a long time. In fact, she's been out of the classroom and out of education for 20 years now. But there are still students that she connected with when she was nursing and teaching health science technology that she talks to on a regular basis now. And those folks are, 20-year reunions. Their kids are in school now.
Now, let me ask you a question, Stan. Sure. As we're talking about, I think everyone can agree Rockwall teachers need to make more money. It's the backbone of our schools over technology, football fields, any of it. It's the teachers.
Sure.
And our teachers obviously make in this district way too small of an amount.
Right.
Couldn't the raises have came without a bond? Isn't there the ability for the board to have decided we're going to give these guys a raise?
Yeah, and I mean we do that. So every year that I've been on the board, and if you go look back historically, I mean we are trying to give a raise every single year. Okay. We're so committed to giving a raise that we adopted a deficit budget this year, $7.5 million, and most of that $7.5 million was the raise to teachers. Okay. We said, look, we cannot have a flat. Inflation's going on. We've got to give them something. And so, we looked at and did the analysis and took the risk. What I think, and I'll answer your question in kind of a roundabout way, is if you go back before 2022, the district was really kind of preparing for hopefully additional funds from the state legislature. There hasn't been a raise to the basic allotment since 2019. And so the district has been kind of stockpiling some money. We did about $3.8 million in 2022 into what we call our fund balance. So we're required by law to keep 3 months of operating expenses on hand at all times.
So we're operating in the black. We're not in debt.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. So we're operating in the black. We actually operate to zero. I mean, it's that we're not a for-profit entity. We operate to zero.
Somebody will take it if you don't use it.
Yeah, but not that. I don't want to misrepresent. Okay. But we have to keep 3 months of operating expenses on hand at all times. But over the course of a few years, the district looked at it and said, look, Austin's not responding. They're not sending us more money. They're not raising the basic allotment, and things cost more. Insurance costs more, gas costs more, food service costs more, things cost more. So the district started kind of putting back a little bit of money into that fund balance, where going into this year, we had about 5.5 months of operating expenses in that fund balance in those reserves. And so we looked at it and said, look, if we're going to spend it on anything, we need to spend it on teachers. We need to provide the way to give them a raise. And instead of a 3% raise this year, we did 2%. We did 3% last year. The year before, we did it was kind of a sliding scale based on years of experience, where a new teacher got 4% and an experienced teacher got 7%. And so we really try to be aggressive every single year. The thing that the VADER allows us to do is we have kept the tax rate low. In fact, the tax rate's been going down historically for about 11 years, to where it is the lowest rate that Rockwall ISD has ever had. And what we're trying to do is keep that low so that the burden's not on the taxpayer. But we're now to the place where this VADER is the only mechanism that the school district has to keep more of our taxpayer dollars in Rockwall. And I'll show you a chart on that in just a minute. But I do want to answer, because you brought up the $16 million number, and that number is right on Proposition A. Part of that money has to go to kind of make up some unfunded mandates that the state has said, you've got to do this, but we're not going to give you any more money to do it. And so one of those things is, in light of the Uvalde shooting a couple of years ago, they want an armed security officer or a school resource officer on every campus in the district. And so they said, you've got to do that, and but we're not going to really give you that much more money for safety and security. And so we ended up getting a small amount. I think it ended up being about $26,000 or $27,000 per campus to hire an armed security guard. Well, to do that in Rockwall, we had to go to Fate Police, we had to go to Rockwall Police, we had to go to Rockwall County Sheriff, we had to go to Heath Police and ask them if they would help us to staff all of our campuses with an armed security guard and a school resource officer. And the district took on the brunt of financing that, of paying for that. The cities jumped in and helped us on that. And so we've got about $4.3 million worth of mandated things that we have to do that the state didn't give us any money to take care of. And that cuts into everything else that we do. So part of that $16 million is to kind of bring it back to zero, and then we can use the rest of that. The board directed the district and said, you have to use the rest of that money for teacher salaries. So a 1% raise across our entire district is about $1.3 million.
Okay.
So you've done the best you can do. Is that
correct?
Okay.
Yeah, that's
and
correct.
then one thing I also remind people too, you just talked about the raises that just for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, those are right along the lines, I would think, of cost of living.
100%.
And then medical cost for the medical program, or their benefits have gone up.
Right.
So there's a valid point of the teachers have received raises and may possibly be making less than what they were before, as far as expenses that are out there.
Yeah, and there's testimonies all over social media right now of like, look, I've gotten a raise. My salary has gone up, but I make $29 a month more. $37 a month more on a 2% raise or a 3% raise.
Which gets you a coffee at Starbucks.
That's right. And it's it's difficult. So the district does, for the employee, the district puts $361 a month towards their health insurance, but it doesn't change what it costs for their family. If their family's using the district's insurance, or their spouse, their significant others using the district's insurance. And our family, my wife worked for the district up until last year, and our family, just paying for us. Now I do have, Billy knows, I've got 86 kids.
Yeah.
But, once you pay for 3 kids.
Let's be honest, half the school district is Stan's
That's
family.
right. But I'm telling you, like, it was a very significant 4-digit number every month to pay for insurance for our family. And, I know I know what I make, I know what my wife made. If you're a single person with children and you're paying for district insurance, I mean, my goodness.
Right.
How do you afford rent and gas, or a mortgage and gas and groceries and all that with those additional costs? That's tough.
Also think about, there's a lot of families that both are teachers too, the parents.
That's right.
And so you kind of double that, a little bit.
Yeah.
And because a lot of people are blessed, like me and you, where I have my own business and my own job.
Right.
And then you have a teacher that's, when me and Autumn were both teaching, I don't know how we made it. I don't know.
Yes.
I mean, because I do know that there's a lot of stuff you can put on noodles for supper, to extend meals.
We got pork noodles,
we
beef noodles,
can do. What are we going to put on noodles tonight?
That's right.
Yeah. Now, right in line with this, we've got a teacher. We had a few people email us or text us in some questions. This is a single mother. She's a teacher at Dobbs who wanted to.
As an educator, I'm always grateful for the 3 to 4% pay raise Rockwall ISD has given me in the past, but I was curious to know, does the school board understand with the rate of inflation, the cost of insurance, disability insurance, life insurance, that the increase in pay per month that the average educator is receiving is about $30 a month?
That's what we just
were just talking about it.
Yeah,
And that's a real life.
And that's, I mean, and I'll tell you, it's frustrating. And I'm going to use that word on purpose. It's frustrating when you look at it and go, man, where can we find some more? Where can we cut? And so if you go look at the 2024-2025 budget, there are cuts to a lot of line items so that we can give a raise to teachers. And what I think it's important for people to understand is the district spends right at 85 cents of every dollar we spend on instructional salaries. I'm not talking about, janitors and all that other stuff. I'm talking about teachers. We spend 85 cents of every dollar on instructional salaries. And so you take that, you take the 12 cents of every dollar that we spend on, turning on the lights, flushing the toilets, cooking the food, keeping everything clean, toilet paper, paper towels, paper, office supplies, all that stuff. That's 12 cents. Well, that only leaves 3 cents. And that's for everything else. And on a budget the size of Rockwall ISD, 3% is about $5.5 million. So you're talking about 19,000 kids. You're talking about 12 to 1,300 teachers, and then support staff of about 500 to 600, so about 1,700 to 1,800 employees. And we're the largest employer in Rockwall County. The school district is the largest employer in Rockwall County, and our discretionary spending is $5.5 million.
And one more quick question, and we can move on to the next proposition. The Vader this is only for teachers. We haven't talked about other employees of the school district.
Yeah, so no, it's teachers and support staff.
Okay.
Yeah, and so if you look at it, a 1% raise for teachers is about $750,000 in budget. 1% for the entire district is about $1.3 million. Okay. And so what we're looking at is, people have been asking, well, how much is my raise going to be? It's a great question. And I wish that I could say, hey, look, you're going to get X number of dollars. And we don't know that yet, because we have to get the pot of money. We have to figure out, are we going to give a raise based on years of service? Because we've got teachers who have been here for a long time, and we want to reward that. But what's going to ultimately happen if the Vader passes, every teacher and support staff is going to get some kind of a stipend payment immediately. And then in the 25-26 compensation plan, we will say, look, here's what's going to happen to the scale for teacher pay. The starting pay will go up, the years of service pay will go up, and we'll be able to create a compensation package that takes into account this money that's coming in.
So it's kind of like a snowball a little bit.
It is, yeah. And I think it's fair to say, like, if I'm a teacher with 20 years of experience and you're telling me I'm getting the same raise as a brand new teacher out of college, I don't know that I would be very happy about that. And so what we're looking at and what we want to do as a board is to look at it and say, okay, how do we reward the folks who've been here and invested, their years of service, and the folks who've moved into the district with years of service, and then how do we make ourselves competitive in the market to recruit new teachers to come in from out of college or whatever it looks like. And so I know, and I don't mean for it to be a non-answer, but there's a lot of formulating that's going to go into, but I can tell you absolutely that the board has said that money has to go to teacher raises.
That's been a big question.
Cannot go anywhere else.
How can we guarantee that? I've been seeing that over
and you've got I can't speak on behalf of the board, but you've got 7 of us who have said we want Rockwall to be competitive. We want to be a game changer in the teacher market. We want people to want to be here. We want people to want to stay here. And how do we do that? Well, we do it with competitive pay, great benefits, in a great community.
And also, I remember we got bonuses when I taught. Yeah. Which is great, and the school board doing what they can. We also got bonuses from the state. This is during COVID when I taught too, so the state gave some, but the bonuses don't go towards your retirement. Bonuses are just here you go.
Congratulations.
But the stipends do go towards your retirement. And that's the thing I think teachers want to see too. When we would get hey, you got a bonus. Yeah, but the whole goal of these teachers is to build on that retirement.
Yeah, this is TRS eligible money.
Right. And then, there was one other thing we wanted to talk about, and I'm going blank all of a sudden right now with the teacher salaries. We'll come back to it then in a minute. But there was something else I wanted to bring up when we were addressing all this and moving forward.
The way that we've looked at the Vader specifically is, the goal would be to slingshot Rockwall ISD from second on that list, from the bottom, to slingshot us ahead. Now,
so you're going NASCAR all of a sudden.
Yeah, we're trying to kind of
going to do it.
Yeah, but the reason being is this is the one shot that we have, because all those other districts have a Vader. And they've already done that for their teachers. And so we're trying to figure out how can we slingshot past, and get up. We won't get to the top of the list. I wish we could. But to get up into the mix where somebody's not deciding like, man, I'd love to go to Rockwall, but my gosh, I could go anywhere else and make more money.
And you're asking people, I believe, are per capita, we're the wealthiest county in Texas. So you're going to ask people to come move here, teach in our schools, but your salary is going to be one of the lowest compared to other teachers in the area. I know what I was wanted to talk about was how can, and we talked about this before, explain to people why, if we're the wealthiest county, why can't we pay our teachers better when people don't understand why?
That's a great question, and I think the simplest way to explain it is what people need to understand is if the county takes in more tax dollars, so your property values go up, you pay more this year than you did last year. That doesn't change what the district gets. The only thing that changes what the district gets is students enrolled in the district, because the way that formula is calculated is the basic allotment plus any stipends for special ed or accommodations or anything like that times the number of kids you have in the district. And so that's the only way to change the amount of money that the district takes in. And like I said a moment ago, we spend 85 cents of every dollar that we get on salaries, on instructional salaries. So, and I do want to make this caveat, that's not administrative salaries. Like that 85 cents is teachers.
Just teachers.
Yeah. And then, of a portion of that, we spend less than 3 cents per dollar on administrative salaries. We actually, based on that audit that we had to do, we spend less on admin than any other district in our area.
I was just looking, there was so much talk about, these superintendents. I pulled that up 2 nights ago. Our superintendent looks just about like this list here.
Close to the bottom.
City of Garland, double.
Yeah.
So for people to say that the administrations and the superintendents and all of those people are just killing it.
Well, that leads us into why does Garland and all these others have the funds? We have Robin Hood. That Rockwall and Holland Park and Prosper,
Well, there's a chart that I sent over, and I want to make sure that folks see this. It's the 2 lines there, turquoise and black. Yeah. So if you look there, and y'all, we have to be real honest here. School finance in Texas is a big, nasty, hairy animal. Like it's hard to understand. And I told a group a couple of weeks ago, the things that you have to know in order to sit on the board of trustees, they're just stuff that I never in a million years thought that I'd have to understand. And one of them is school finance. So as I mentioned, the only thing that changes revenue in the school district is the number of kids enrolled. That's it. The state says you get X number of dollars per child enrolled, and then they actually reduce it based on what's called your weighted average daily attendance. So if a kid, and that's why if you have kids in the school district, if they're not there by 8 o'clock, they're tardy, and if they're not there by 10 o'clock, they're absent. And you probably get that phone call just like I do when you're running late trying to get the kids out the door and you walk up to the school at 7:51. But what people need to understand is the amount of tax revenue that the ISD takes in from Rockwall taxpayers does not pay for 100% of education in Rockwall. And I want to go back to that chart and show you what I mean when I say that. So in 2013, you can see it there. It's just above 60% blue. So that means the taxpayer was paying for about 61 cents of every dollar of public education in Rockwall. And the state was contributing about 39%. So as you follow that out in 2022, and this is, you know, about a year old, we're up over, the taxpayer is paying for 80+ cents of every dollar, and the state is contributing less. But the taxpayer is still not paying for 100% of education in Rockwall.
Why has this trended down for the state?
Because the state is moving us towards what you mentioned a moment ago, which is Robin Hood. And so,
and what's the official name? I always call it Robin Hood.
I mean, we call it Robin Hood. It was a bill that was passed in the early 90s where wealthier districts pay for their education, and then anything over and above that gets taken back, recaptured, and distributed among districts that don't have as much property wealth as a district like Rockwall. And so there was a stat that came out about 3 years ago, may have been 2 years ago now, of the top 10 recaptured districts in the state. Travis County was the top. And there was $762 million of tax dollars recaptured from Austin ISD to be redistributed out. I mean, I come from a property wealthy district because of oil and gas in West Texas, and Midland and Odessa were in that top 10. Plano is in that. Frisco is in that. Allen is in that. They're all recaptured. In fact, in the top 10 districts, I think this was 2021, 2022, $3.3 billion in tax revenue was recaptured from the local school districts and distributed out to the less wealthy, less property wealthy school districts.
When I was on the committee, I remember David Carter. By the way, shout out to David Carter and all he does.
CFO.
He's the CFO.
Yeah.
And he, one time I asked him about that one. We had a break, and he came over to our table and he started writing down about how Robin Hood works. And there's no way I can explain it exactly, but all it was basically what I got from it is when he was writing the numbers down, and you say, oh, what if we brought this much in? He would always come back with, yeah, you bring more, that means more we're giving out.
Yeah.
And it was never a concrete, if we have the, more property taxes come in or whatever it is, then that means more for us. No, that means that percentage stays, and or whatever you went over, and now that goes to Garland or goes to Bolt Springs or wherever.
Yeah.
And it's hard to keep up.
Yeah.
And so it ain't necessarily if you get more that more is going to your teachers in a district like Rockwall or Allen or something like that.
And I think it's important to note too that the amount that is determined to stay in your district or not is determined by the state. They give you a formula to figure your tax rate, and they say everybody has to be within 90% of each other. So like they set a rate, and they look across the whole district, and they say everybody's got to be within 90%. So they come up with an average, and it's this big convoluted actuarial formula. And they tell us, hey, your rate's got to be here. And we can't go up or they'll take the difference. We can't go below or they'll penalize us. And so that number gets told to us by the state. And you
have to deal with it.
And you do. And the only thing that changes it is if the state says we're going to give you more per student. Yeah. That's the only thing that can change that number.
And if you have any questions about this, I think we're going to give David Carter's home address and mobile number.
We do.
Just pop in. Just pop in. No, I'm kidding, David. I
but we got an email from Stan, and it was. I thought it was one of the graphics that he wanted up here, and it was pretty much his. Awesome.
Now, David's signature. You're about to post it up there.
We say that tongue in cheek, but I will tell you, David will answer any and all questions. Okay. And if it means sitting down with you face to face, he'll sit down with you face to face.
I don't know how he does it.
I don't either.
Is he a typical nerdy number guy?
He is, but David's kind of Joe Cool too.
He is. Okay. He's like a cool nerd.
Cooler than the
rest. Yeah. I mean, David's one of those guys that, and I tell people all the time, and I think it's great for folks to hear this, but like we are extremely fortunate to have David Carter in the seat that he's in. So David's a former Texas Education Agency auditor. He went around auditing school districts, and then he went into the school business at an ISD up the road, and then we stole him away about I think 7 or 8 years ago now.
I remember when he was hired.
And David, so when we get audited, when we put out and say, hey, look, we want you to come in and look at our books. I mean, I've watched it now for a couple of years. The auditors come in and they go, man, we love working with Rockwall. Because when we show up on day one, you guys have everything ready. We don't have to ask for anything. And I think it's indicative of the fact that we don't want to live out on the fringes of what's allowed. We live real tight right in the middle so that, we can say with the utmost integrity that the taxpayer dollar is being protected in Rockwall. You know, and I know people want to say that it's wasteful and all these other things, and I do want to get to some specifics that people need to understand about buildings and building costs and why things are done the way they're done, because there is an extremely methodical reasoning behind, you know, why the 9th grade campuses were built like they were built on the size property that they were built on and the cost. And it's all due in large part to David and his team looking out into the future and running the district that way.
And we'll move on to Proposition B, if you're good with that, Jay. That talks about
absolutely.
the buildings and stuff.
Yeah.
But one last question I get about the Vader is, this is very important. Why didn't we do it sooner? Why is it just now we're doing it?
Yeah, I mean,
and you can always say, "Well, I only got elected 2 years
yeah,
ago."
No. And I it's a great question, and I think part of it was we genuinely believed that Austin was going to raise the basic allotment in 2023. We believed it in 2021 as well.
And I think huge drop there.
Yeah, I think there was a genuine feeling that the legislature was going to raise the basic allotment after COVID and after all the things that we experienced, and they just couldn't get it across the finish line for a myriad of reasons, you know, good and bad. They just couldn't get it across the finish line, and I think, you know, too, inflation kind of snuck up on everybody.
Yeah, it did.
You know, remember 2021, 2022, and we're like, man, we're doing awesome. And then all of a sudden you go to the store and it costs you $5 for a gallon of milk and $5 for a dozen eggs. And you're like, hold on a minute.
It was fast.
Yeah.
We go back to the noodles.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, man, I'm paying $1.80 for gas, and now I'm paying, you know, $3 for gas, $2.80 for gas. And so, you know, and remember too, that can only be changed every 2 years.
Yeah.
In odd numbered years. And so, you know, there was a big question of, hey, do we need to do this? Right before I got elected, you know, do we need to go ahead and put this on there? And the general consensus was, man, we feel like Austin's going to get it right. We don't want to put an unnecessary burden on the taxpayers if Austin's going to increase, you know, the pot, and we don't have to collect more. Because what happens is that just pushes us closer to that 100% number, and we want to try to stay as far away from that as we possibly can.
And let's not forget too, COVID threw everything.
It did. Yeah, 100%.
With all that.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Proposition B.
Yep.
Is $787 million.
Yep.
This is your biggest chunk out of the four that we're proposing. Yep. It will have 2 elementary schools, Utley Middle School Phase 2 addition, Rockwall High School and Rockwall Heath High School renovations and additions, Collins Lake Point Elementary School replacement. Thank goodness for those folks. Those folks have been patiently waiting for a new one.
Yeah, a long time. 40 years.
Collins Lake Point. Dr. Gene Burton College and Career Academy additions for cosmetology, culinary arts, Marine Corps, JROTC, and a new Ag Science Center.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
And then, and we have a question about the Ag Center. We'll get to a little bit. Buses and more. So that's what we're going to move on here. You wanted to talk about the buildings and the process we have to go through. Just don't just say, hey, let's just put a building over there.
Sure. So if you go back to the 2007 bond, so 17 years ago, the district paid for architectural plans for an elementary school footprint. And so like Hayes Elementary was the first one built in that footprint. Okay. And if you go drive by them, you drive by Hayes, you drive by Stevenson, Ham, Shannon, Garcia out in Williamsburg, Linda Lyon. Those schools, when you drive up to them, you go, man, these all look identical, because they are. They're the same footprint. So those schools, we started building them, and in 2007, Hayes Elementary was approximately $13 million. The exact same footprint in 2017, 10 years later, is Linda Lyon Elementary School. Mm-hmm. That school cost us $22 million to build. Mm-hmm. So 40-ish%, you know, actually more than that, about 60% more in 10 years, give or take. We built the same footprint in 2021, Lupe Garcia in Williamsburg. The same footprint was $35 million. So you're talking about another 40% and a 3X over about a 14-year period of time, 300% more. It's the same building, the same footprint, the same square footage, the same fixtures and equipment. Everything's the same. And it cost us 3 times the amount of money to build.
So you can draw the conclusion: the longer we wait on this,
the more money it's gonna cost. And so we come to the 2021 bond, And we start looking at, okay, we need some more elementary schools, and we need to rebuild Rockwall Elementary because it's 52 years old and it's the oldest building in the district.
But looking good now.
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
So get this, the Rockwall Elementary that we just completed is about 100 students smaller capacity than Linda Lyon, Shannon, Garcia, all those. About 100 kids smaller. Cost us $45 million to build. And we're talking about, it's two rectangles.
What was Hayes again when we did?
Hayes was about 13. So yeah, it's you just look at it and go, wow.
Yeah,
you know. So we're looking at this from the standpoint of things just cost more. And it's not because we're building some big flashy thing. The 9th grade campuses, everybody, oh my gosh, those are, big. They are beautiful buildings, but we built those for about $100 million each. Because we needed to offload some student capacity at both of the high schools. Yeah. Everybody's like, well, why didn't you build a third high school? Well, because a third high school was going to be $300 million. Right. And it would have put us in a position where we're pulling from the north side and the south side and sending them to a third school. It's like, well, hold on. Why don't we take 800 to 1,000 kids off of each of the high school campuses and do it for a fraction of the cost, 66 cents on the dollar?
And if I remember correctly, back a couple of years ago, those were planned that they could be high schools.
That's right.
That was
That's right. And one of the
back.
things that was taken out of this bond proposition was moving sophomores to the 9th grade campuses and making them 9th and 10th grade. So there's 22 projects listed on the website, and some of those are like umbrellas over multiple things that will happen on a campus. And so I think if you look at all of it, it's in the 40s. The number of total projects, it's about 40 projects that are going to be completed for that $787 million. So, and I've told you all of what I just said to say this. Those 2 new elementary schools that are at the very top of that list, they're projecting that we're going to spend somewhere between $55 and $65 million to build those schools. And we're talking about something that 7 years ago costs us a third of that to build.
Well, and think about it. The biggest complaint for people that don't want to pay these, higher property taxes for this is because we have to pay so much more for other things. Yeah. But that it goes along with everything. Yeah. So this is a necessity. Yeah. You got to have the buildings for we're growing crazy, like crazy. And I can tell you, in my time, we had already had the Burton Academy established for a while. We knew when the Burton Academy was built, the plan was that'll alleviate a lot of the crowding in the high schools. Yep. I think it did for 10 minutes.
Right.
And because you would go through the hallways and you're shoulder to shoulder, it is packed going through there. I'm sure Heath was the same way. Yeah. And it is crazy the amount of students that, you have to move around to get to their classes, to this and that, from the Burton Academy back to school, all these other things. Right. So the freshman centers are absolutely needed.
Yeah. To your point, let me read these statistics. It's kind of crazy. Rockwall County is the second fastest growing county in America in 2023 from the U.S. Census Bureau. More than 150 people move to Rockwall every day. Rockwall County every day.
150 every day.
Every day. Rockwall County has doubled in size at least in the last decade, and more than 24,000 people have moved to Rockwall County since 2020.
Yeah. So and we're the smallest county land.
Yeah. And so it brings up a good point. One of the things that people need to understand is when the bond committee came back from their original with their original proposal, we were over $1 billion just for the bond, over $1 billion. And we went to our financial advisor who looks at, okay, how much is it going to cost to service these bonds for however much time? And the board said, we want a bond package that has zero impact to the tax rate. And what happens is because we're growing, because more houses are being built, because kids are coming into the district, because right now, if you look at every rooftop that gets built in Rockwall County, we average somewhere between 0.8 and 1 child per rooftop of growth here in our area, which means, people are moving in with a family. When we moved to Rockwall, I was pastoring a church, and so I was looking at demographics and all those things. And in 2014, when we moved to Rockwall, the average family moving in was 37 years old and had 2 kids between the ages of 6 and 14. And so you think about that. I mean, that's Joe and Susie homeowner and their 2 kids who are somewhere between 1st and 9th grade, right?
It's not the Brittons.
It's not the Brittons. No. It wasn't. But I mean, we were 34 with that at that time 4 kids.
Okay.
But what's happening is there was a time where the largest demographic in Rockwall was age 55 to 64.
Yes.
This was a huge retirement community.
Yes.
People moved out of Dallas. They
Yes.
wanted to be by the lake, and they moved out here. Well, then people started going, man, the schools are great. And they start moving, and you've got little neighborhoods popping up. And that trend has continued to the point now where we're looking at this going, man, with the houses that are already entitled, they could say no more development. The houses that are already entitled are going to impact the school district enough that we need the things that we're proposing here. Yeah. And so, the board was very clear that we don't want the bond to impact the tax rate. And if we are impacting the tax rate, we want that to go to teachers. That's why the Vader structure the way that it is. So the propositions B, C, and D will impact the tax rate between 0 and 1 penny.
So let's talk about what that means in real dollars.
Yeah.
Because you hear the pennies and 4 pennies.
Yep.
Let's say you have a $100,000 house to make it simple. $100,000 is what they valued your house at. As it sits now versus if it passes, we know if it does not pass, the tax rate is
1.02.
1.02. So that is $1,002 on that $100,000 home.
That's $102.
$102.
Yeah, because it's not per 100. It's per $100 of value.
Okay.
So it would if you think about it, it's about 100. Like the Vader is 12 cents per $100 of valuation. So for every $100,000, it's about $120 worth of taxes.
Okay. So if you have a $500,000 house.
Yes. The way we're telling people is if you have a $500,000 house that is your primary homestead, back out the homestead exemption, the $100,000. So you have $400,000 of taxable value times 120 per 100,000. So it's about $480 of tax burden for a $400,000 house
Per year.
Yeah,
per year.
Annually. Yep.
Yeah, and not to make light of that. Not a lot of people will be like, that's nothing. Some families. No,
that's a lot.
I mean, it is
and I want to make no light about that at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at it from where we live, and I go, man, and this is something I told a group of parents asking a few weeks ago. I said, look, when I put my hand in the air and say, yes, I think we need to go out for these bonds and this Vader proposal, I'm raising my own taxes.
Yes.
I'm asking for a tax increase out of my own pocket.
Right.
And so I want people to understand, like, there's no benefit, other than being able to say, look, we've got to plan ahead. That was the other thing the board said. With this proposal, we wanted to try to get, 5 years down the road. Because we just passed one in 2021, and we thought that was going to get us 5 years down the road. And then because of inflationary costs, we had to say, look, we don't. There's no more to build. Normally we'll pass a bond and we've got a little bit left over to go, yeah, we can service a few projects moving forward. With the 2021 bond, we're like, man, we got to the end of it, or we got to where the end of the authorization, the bond authorization. We go, we're not done.
No.
We've got to complete some projects.
Well,
here.
and that brings me to this, because that was one of the questions I got. It was anonymous. They did not want their name.
Yeah.
But it was, we passed a $475 million bond in 2021. But now we need almost $1 billion bond 3 years later. How can we trust this one won't be like the previous one you just mentioned, where we didn't have enough there to even cover what we wanted to do?
Yeah.
I know that a lot of the things that we want to do in this bond is covering what we didn't do in the previous bond, which included a lot with the gymnasiums and things like that, with the schools and stuff. How can we know that we're not asked again in 3 years and you come back and say, now we need a $2 million or $2 billion bond?
So that's a great question, by the way.
Thank you, Anonymous.
Yeah. So what it's really important to see here is we're not asking the taxpayer to November 5th, when the election results come out, to write the district a check for $849 million. That's not what's happening. It's kind of like, and Jay, you'll know this reference, it's kind of like a line of credit or a home equity loan. And what it is we're saying, hey, based on growth, based on who's moving in and how many kids are moving in, we think that over the next 5 years, we're going to need this amount of money to build the facilities to make sure that we've got enough places to put everybody. And so we don't sell those bonds until we need the money to build whatever it is that we're building. It's simply the taxpayer giving us the authorization to utilize that amount of money if we need to.
Right.
How does interest accrue on that?
It's like a line of credit. It only
Is it
accrues
adjustable
if
you use it.
It's fixed. Now, basically, we look at it from what's the interest rate when we sell that bond. They're going to give us an interest rate on that series of bonds that we sell. And so like the 2021 bond, I think we did it in either 3 series or maybe 4 series. And, it's a very low interest rate because where the money is made is, folks are giving a large amount of money, getting a small amount of interest, and then we're selling them out and people are buying them for a higher interest.
Tons of investors putting money in on it. Very safe investment.
Yes. Yeah. And so, and I want to say this here, and this is a pretty pointed statement, and I'm saying it on purpose. If you are against municipal bonds like this, and you're saying, I'm voting no, the district doesn't need any more, I want you to go into your retirement account, your 401k, whatever else, and you need to divest yourself of municipal bonds because you're earning interest on the back end of it in your retirement plan in your 401k. And it is extremely irresponsible for you to look at the children of our community and the teachers of our community and say no, but then turn around and get interest off of municipal bonds that you're invested in. And I guarantee you, if you're using any kind of 401k, retirement, whatever, I guarantee you there are municipal bonds in your investments. And it is irresponsible for you to gain interest on the back end of it when you're looking at our kids and our community and saying, no, I can't do it. Sorry, soapbox. I'll get off the soapbox.
That's a good point.
Big point.
So what people need to understand is this biggest portion, $787 million, we're looking at least 5 years down the road and saying, hey, we think we need to build this over 5 years. And we're going to sell those bonds in a series, and then we will service those bonds as we sell them. That's the other thing is there's a whole other bucket of money that we get through the tax rate to service debt. Every school district in the state, this is how they do it. You've got a bucket for maintenance and operations. You've got a bucket for debt service.
But now we're going to have 2 big bills, the $500 million, and if this passes $1 billion. So we now have both of those.
So we've got stuff from 2015 that we're still paying on. It's like a mortgage. You take out a mortgage, and so if we build a building, we think that building is going to last 30 years. We take out a 30-year bond. And then we'll get into C&D in a minute, but like things like computers and stuff like that, we don't take out a 30-year bond for computers.
A lot of people will say, we're paying interest for 30 years on a computer.
No,
that's not true.
No. We match the bond with the asset. So if we think that asset will last 5 years, then we only take out a 5-year bond.
That's a huge misconception.
Yeah, if we think the asset will last 30 years, we take out a 30-year bond. And that's what I mean is there's so much misinformation going around. Oh, we're just asking for a blank checkbook. We're really not. And we're very careful about, in fact, and I don't want to belabor the point, but in the 2021 bond, Mr. Carter came to the board ahead of schedule and said, hey, if we refinance our bonds and go ahead and sell what we have left and authorize what we have left, we can save about $93 million in interest by doing that now. And so we went ahead and did that and sold that because we're looking at it going, man, $93 million we can save in interest. That's frugal. That's on purpose. And we want to make sure that we do that. So.
And real quick to stay, then I want to jump to Proposition C. This one, the B, as I mentioned, which I think a lot of people are excited about, is a CTE is involved with this one.
Yeah.
Which you have the cosmetology, culinary arts, Marine Corps, the ROTC, the junior ROTC.
Yeah.
Real life skills.
Real life skills that people have asked for a long time for school districts, because not everybody goes to college. Not everybody, and you would for a lot of these, but a lot of the people just want to be.
Point me out, Billy.
Well, there we go. Like Jay over here.
Yeah.
And so we should have worn our little square hats when we graduated, just to let Jay.
My tails on my gown.
That shows how educated I am. I called it a square hat. And so anyway, but these are big time deals that we need to keep up with. Because we are, that's the other thing that people are like, why do we need all these things? Well, we're a 6A, the largest division of schools as far as if we want to go athletic size, but obviously,
but our bands compete at 6A levels.
Everything
our theater,
competes.
our fine art. I mean, all of that stuff competes at the highest
And I believe
enrollment levels.
if you take in, I think it's athletics and CTE, which is the all the fine arts and all that. I think it's something like 97% of the students.
That's right.
Are involved in these.
97% of secondary students.
Secondary students. Yes.
So you're talking about, you've got about 6,200 high school kids. You have about, and I think I'm close here, about 2,600 middle school students. So do the math. You're talking about 9,000 kids,
And we're talking
8,500
everything.
kids.
We're talking not only this what I just mentioned. We're talking sports. We're talking band.
That's right.
Jay can talk band.
That's right.
And so we're doing all. And so what I wanted to do is we did have a question. And because we have to answer it because it's Shelley Springer.
Yes.
And of course, Shelley Springer wants something, we jump.
100%.
She did not want to stay anonymous.
No, she did not.
No, she was one of the first comments on the
our
post.
Facebook deal, yeah. And so we love Shelley and her dad, Stanley. We're super involved. They are the ag department a lot of times.
Yeah.
And so she wanted to know about the ag improvement, the barn improvements, and I want to give her those answers real quick because my kids are both involved with ag, and if you haven't been involved with ag, I can't emphasize enough how great it is when you do get involved because it just teaches so much stuff, so many life skills doing it. But anyway, in that one, classrooms, labs, and welding. That's in a 19,000 square foot. What is that? Oh, our timer just went off. Or the brownies are ready.
The brownies that you prepared.
Yeah. But the classrooms, labs, and welding, 19,000 square feet. That's for $8.5 million. There's also going to have arenas, animal enclosures, storage. It's a reimbursement for the land acquisition. This just the ag, I believe, is at $19 million. I think for that, but it is so needed because you go there now. Like I said, when we were there. They don't have enough room for the animals. They don't have enough room for, and they don't have classrooms for a lot of these things that are huge life skills for these kids to learn, and not even including the cosmetology. And so this is very much needed. The military with the ROTC and all that stuff. So
and the Gene Burton was built in such a way to expand to accommodate these programs.
Yeah, it is going to move.
Online.
Yeah.
Gene Burton School is amazing.
Yeah,
and
there's
not enough spots for all these.
Yeah,
kids.
I mean, we have a nationally award-winning culinary program.
Oh my gosh!
And there, if you haven't been, there's a little cafe over there, and you can go get a meal. I mean, you can go and eat at the cafe, and they're nationally award-winning. They came to us and said, "Look, we've got to expand the kitchen because we've got more kids signing up than we have room for." In fact, there are 370 CTE students, secondary CTE students, who could not participate in their programs because we don't have space this year.
That's
in
crazy.
2024.
And shout out to Chef Hayes with all he's done.
And you're turning away kids who want to participate, who want to be a part of it, and we have to say no because we don't have the room.
We don't have the room.
And these are, to your point, Billy, these are programs that these kids. I mean, you've got kids going on to culinary school on large, if not full ride scholarships because of their experience here. Well, that's a kid going to college.
Yes, it is.
And they're paying their way.
That's
into
the other thing I wanted to bring up. You're going to cosmetology school. You're going to go
fashion
to
design.
fashion design. All these places that aren't your standard 4-year raw college.
Robotics. I mean, you've got
and
robotics.
So these are huge. And the ag thing is just like I said. There's so many places that yes, you may still go to A&M or Tech or whatever for that, but also you're going to get in industries that you may not even know existed that you would want to be a part of and have a career in.
Yeah.
Okay. Proposition C. This is the technology and the infrastructure. That's $18 million, about $18.5 million in this one.
Yeah, and pretty simple here. This is literally just bringing district technology up. I mean, you guys know. I mean, you get a phone this year, and then by next Tuesday, it's out of date. Same with Chromebooks and things. I mean, and these kids use these things every single day. I mean, you think about the laptop that you have. You use it every day for work, or you use it every day for your projects. And kiddos are doing a lot of their learning via it can be videos, it can be tutorials, it can be classroom sheets that their teachers are putting together, and they're using these. And so it's literally just bringing district technology up to speed with current trends.
Let me give an example. When I taught audio video, and I needed cameras. Our cameras were out of date, and most didn't work. We didn't have
a film.
I was like, we do the thing. Well, our main cameras were the ones where you put the hood over your head and you hold up that thing that just blows smoke. Yeah, and then everybody had to stand still for an hour. No, but
a couple kids got burned.
Yes, it's okay. They're fine now. They're fine. But we had to a point that, now this is also during the COVID time, but we got to a point that there was no money for cameras. We couldn't get cameras, and thank goodness for iPhones because the kids use the iPhones. We had to figure out ways to do things.
Yep.
And you don't want that when these kids are signing up for these classes to sit
Right.
there and say, we're going to make a documentary, get your iPhone out.
Yeah.
Even though iPhone shows a great commercial that you can do movies on, but you want to show them the equipment. So this is really important with this technology. And I know a lot of people go, you don't need all. No, you do, because we want our students to stay in step with the rest of the world and know what's going on and be able to step right into the workforce or go to college and not be behind because we don't want to spend any more money on it.
And do we need it? Maybe not. Do we deserve it? Absolutely. I've got enough pride in this community where I want all of that for my kids. That's what we deserve. So I don't care about what we need. If you're only worried about the basics, move to Mesquite.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Shots fired.
Right across the bow.
I mean, and I know we've got
He
to be
didn't mention Garland because he was from Garland.
Yeah, Garland was great.
Garland's an outstanding school district.
No, and I'm not. I'm just saying.
Apparently.
I feel like Rockwall deserves all of that.
I agree.
Yeah.
So don't
100%.
go saying that's too much. The building's too pretty. Get out of here.
Yeah.
I'm tired of it.
Just go down the road and look what Roy City's done. You go to their special events center.
It's
great.
And
it's
maybe,
unbelievable.
And maybe those folks can aspire to move to different communities. Like I'd like to live in Highland Park maybe. I can't afford it, but they have wonderful things. So I'd like to say this is a community where we can have wonderful things.
And I think it comes back to, we've tried to keep the tax rate low. If you picked your house up and moved it to any one of those other districts, you will pay more than what you pay in Rockwall.
Yes.
In some places, a lot more than what you pay here.
Yes.
But let me back to my point. I don't want that to be insensitive. Like just buy it; it doesn't matter, because that's kind of how I do my personal finances. And my wife will tell you, "Oh, just get it." I don't want to be that stupid, and I don't want us to be in trouble.
Well,
so
it's a good point. And when they bring a proposal to the bond or to the board. Hey guys, we need to buy computers. Okay, great. We're going to go out for bid, and we're going to ask for 3 bids. And I mean, we go by the book, and I can tell you, almost to a project, the lowest bidder gets it every time. There are occasionally times where we go, look, guys, the people bidding didn't understand the full scope, and so this low bid doesn't include some things. And so we're going to go with the medium bid because it's actually what we're asking for. But almost to a project, we go with 100%. The lowest bidder.
Well, government does that.
Yeah, I mean, there are times where I'm just going, man, let's just spend a little extra.
Right.
But the reasonableness in it is, look, we've got to provide for our kids to keep that plan because the world is advancing, right? And we're trying to prepare. I mean, we're graded as a district on college, career, and military readiness. So we're graded on that. We've got to put these things out there where they have the tools that, to your point about Cash, he's going to go get an entry-level job, but what resources are going to be available to him in that entry-level job that he learned how to use in high school?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're looking at here. I mean, a welding technician having the best technology that he or she can use to go into that field, plumbing, electrician, HVAC, which all of those things are available. We want the best technology available. I don't want to belabor this point.
I want to play we got a really good question.
Sure.
Kind of back to my point on fiscal responsibility. I thought this person made a great some great comments.
Sure.
Melba. Let me play her response, and I'd like to hear your.
Yeah.
Good morning, Trustee Britton. My name is Melba Jeffas. I'm a 25-year resident of Rockwall County. And over those 25 years, I've watched incredible changes in our county. We have massive growth. We continue to have massive growth. And I know that that's part of why the school board is requesting these bond issues. But I need you to think about a different situation in Rockwall. I talk to a lot of people. Have you read the responses on Rockwallian and on Facebook about this bond issue? Our citizens are struggling right now. A large number of them are having to make choices, hard choices on where they spend their money. They have to pay their house payment, they have to pay their utilities, they need groceries for their children. But they're having to make other choices that they have to deny their children things and their families things because they can't afford it, and they can't afford the tax increase that will come from this tax bond issue. These citizens have done their homework. They've gone to the tax office. They know what the impact of this will be on their monthly payments. and they're not going to vote for it. I'm in favor of the Vader, only because I know our teachers need a raise. We need to be able to hire the cream of the crop of teachers for Rockwall. We need to let them know that they're appreciated and pay what other school districts our size are able to pay. I'm going to vote for the Vader for that very reason. And I know that it includes additional security officers for our schools, and those are necessary as well. But Trustee Britton, I will not vote for the other 3 parts of this because I know that our citizens can't afford it at this time, and you all need to reconsider. Thank you.
So that's an opinion that many have. How do you respond to all of those folks who feel like that?
I'll go back to what I said a few minutes ago, that when this bond proposal was brought to the board from the committee, we said we want a bond package that will have 0 impact to the tax rate. Because that's and it brings up another point, and I want to thank Ms. Jeffers for the question. She and I have had some conversations offline too.
And by the way, just for the record, longest question ever so far on Rock 30. Ms. Jeffers, she's at the top.
She did. But
outstanding, though.
Yeah,
outstanding presentation.
I think what people need to understand is the district is not asking for more money to service debt from the tax rate.
I think that's the distrust. Yeah. That statement right there is not trusted by many.
We're not asking for more money to service debt. We're not. I mean, the debt service rate stayed the same. It actually went down. The debt service rate is staying the same. You're going to pay that whether this passes or not. It's just going to service all the way back to 2015. So once we pay that off, then we continue to pay towards 2021, the ones that we've already issued for that. I will tell you, this bond is not going away. It's going to come. If it doesn't pass this time, it'll be back out in May. Because these are things that we need, because 14 of 24 campuses are overcrowded or approaching capacity at the moment. We can throw up portables, and we'll probably have to.
They're learning cottages.
They're mobile homes, they're trailers, they're learning cottages.
I think the official term we were told there's learning.
They're learning cottages. But here's what people need to understand: the bond's not going away. Because we're not asking for more money to service the debt. We're asking for more money to pay teachers and to pay for the unfunded mandates. And people need to make that distinction.
Now, she did say she would vote for the Vader.
And she needs to understand, and I don't mean this disrespectfully by any stretch of the imagination, is the only thing that we are asking for more money from the taxpayer for is to pay teachers, period. Because Austin has not released more funds to us via the basic allotment to increase what we keep from what is assessed towards from the taxpayer. Like I said, the taxpayer doesn't pay 100% of education in Rockwall. They pay 84 cents of every dollar, and the state contributes 16 cents. And so, I've taken that very question into deep consideration, that we're asking you for more to pay teachers because it's the only vehicle that we have left to pay teachers. And then the bond has to have a 0 impact or a negative, like a positive impact, I guess is a better way to put it, where that rate can go down. Servicing debt can go down.
Huge unspoken point.
I mean, and what people think is the district is going out and incurring all this debt, and it's going to be an immediate burden upon the taxpayer. And as I mentioned a moment ago, we're not. We're only going to issue the bonds as we build the buildings that we need. The biggest things that we need right now are those 2 elementary schools at the top.
So if this gets passed, then it ain't like it's an instant, here's under $1 billion,
$850 million
towards your taxes.
No, it will be. We will sell those in series of what we need to build. The biggest things are the elementary schools to relieve overcrowding on the schools, particularly on the south side. We do have some overcrowding at Stevenson, and then that obviously trickles into Hayes and Ham and some of those schools as well. But right now, you have schools, Lupe Garcia, Amy Parks, Linda Lyon, schools that are above capacity, that cannot. You're talking about kindergartners going to lunch at 10:15 in the morning, because we've got to have 4 lunch periods or 5 lunch periods. You've got portables outside. Well, that doesn't change the size of the gym, the music room, the band hall, the cafeteria, the parking lot. It doesn't change that. Just means there's more kids at that school. And so, it's a great question, and it's a great concern. And again,
it's a big concern.
I'm looking at my own going, man, I voted to put this out there to get voted on, but to your point, Jay, I believe our community, our kids deserve this. Our kids deserve to go to safe schools. Our kids deserve to go to schools where the air conditioner works every time, the water runs every time, the natural gas works every time, the sewer works every time. I mean, ask the kids at Cullen's Lake Point how many days of school they missed last year because of sewer, natural gas, and water.
I know.
So at least you didn't make them go.
I mean, we had to go back to the state and go, hey, look, it was unsafe for them to be in school that day, and so we had to close school.
Right.
And that happened on more than one occasion
Did
last year.
they yank funds from you anyway?
No, I mean, we have to ask for a waiver to keep the funds because, but that's the tension between all of this.
Yeah, and let me ask you this then, Stan, because 100% I understand what you're saying and agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. There's a lot of folks, though, that don't understand what you just said, which explained it very well. That is, this is not going to hit your taxes other than the Vader until we get to these points of the. But we're not asking for a cool looking fountain in the middle of the city. That's right. That's not really necessary. We're asking for stuff to keep our kids educated and going to a school that they deserve, all the things. And when I throw deserve in, I ain't just the water and the toilets, it's the computers and the infrastructure and all these things.
It's a band hall at both high schools that's large enough to accommodate the award-winning band programs that we have. They're not practicing in the hallway. They're not practicing outside. They've got a facility that's large enough to service the number of children who are going to that campus
that's
for
exactly
day-to-day.
It. We heard... Go ahead,
it's athletic locker rooms. You have whole teams at both high schools that are changing in the hallway or swapping locker rooms because there's not enough room. Because we built those and we've maintained them as long as we possibly can, and now we just can't go any further.
Well, during one of our meetings in the bond committee, we had somebody come in and say, it was for the fine arts, that the Heath band, like I think it was the trombones or somebody, they have to practice in like a closet because and they're worried about their hearing and stuff because of things like because it's not built for that. Yeah. But you can't and so they're trying to make do there, and everybody looks at Heath and it's a beautiful school and like, well, they ain't got any problems. Look at that, they got it. It's hard to keep up, and I think I was getting
to that point. The kids at Rockwall are in a 30-year-old building,
right?
I mean, it was built in the mid-'90s,
right?
And it's been expanded and things have been added on and changed. But both high school campuses, Heath's 20 years old.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that because I still think of the Rockwall High School as the new high school. Because when I first moved here, it was over there where Utley was.
I want to go back to Miss Jeff's question because I think it's important for people to see here is. There's a lot of people holding Rockwall ISD accountable for things that they have zero authority to change.
And it's hard to know what you do and don't.
Yeah, your tax rate is two things. Your tax rate is your property value and the rate. And while the school district has lowered the rate 40% over the last 8 years, your property values have gone up by that amount. As a trustee, I have zero impact on your property value.
Which, by the way, that's a good thing because that means you are growing your wealth.
Most people's homes are the largest asset that they purchase, the largest purchase they ever make, and it is the one asset that will give them the most access to equity of anything that they own. Most people.
Yes.
Others they buy other real estate or they own other things, but most people, your home is your largest asset that you own. It's the largest purchase that you've ever made, and it's the quickest access to equity that you have. And as your values go up, you should have access to equity. And what people are holding the district accountable for is the inflation to your property values. We have zero control over that.
Right.
And, so we're looking at it going, man, I'm sorry that your house is worth 30% more in some respects, but you sure aren't going to complain about your house being worth 30% more if you go to sell it.
Sell it, yeah.
In the real estate world, one of the things I always see is people complaining, they've raised my taxes to $400.
Yeah.
But they know damn well if they were going to sell their house, they'd sell it for $500.
You want $500. Yeah, that's exactly
right. So do
we
really want to argue that point?
And people do. And you have every right to argue that point. But the district cannot be held responsible for the appraisal district raising your property values.
No. And the reason the property values go up is because things like good schools. It's the first thing we're asked when you're going to move to a new community. How's the schools?
Do you have
kids?
We
can't move to Dallas because of the schools.
Yeah.
It's all
there's
tied
also,
together.
You know what this is called? I learned this in school. It's a symbiotic relationship, Jay.
I like that.
There you go.
See, I didn't learn that.
And it's where we have to be careful because we don't have any control over the property values. And what I hear a lot of people saying online in particular is, "Oh, you're raising my taxes. No, I'm lowering your rate."
Yeah.
I voted for that. The three chances I've had to vote for it.
And we could lower our values if we had worse schools. People wouldn't want to move here.
Or worse property values. Yeah. You know, because, hey, we could have bad neighborhoods, I guess, and your taxes would go down.
That's what I'm saying.
And I want to say this, too. The RCAD, Rockwall County Appraisal District, is also under state mandate to make sure that they have expected revenue, state prescribed revenue. They have to stay within a certain level, you know, and it blows my mind because we want to say, oh, we don't have a state income tax. We don't have a state income tax. We don't have a state income tax. But the state controls both sides of the formula of the largest tax you pay.
Yes, sir.
They tell the school district you have to be here. They tell the appraisal district you have to be here. And I'm telling you, I'm not trying to shift blame or, you know, go call your congressman, which you should, but the state controls both sides of the formula and tells us where to live, you know, inside of that formula. And if they say you've got to be here, well, guess what? That's where we have to be. Or we're going to get penalized for being above it or below it, or the appraisal district's going to be penalized for being above it, below it. The second side of that, the second prong of that, is people are saying, well, we need to stop building subdivisions, and we need to stop building apartments, and we need to stop building all this. Well, you made a point early on in the podcast about a teacher needing to make a salary where they could live so they could live where they work.
Yeah.
Well, where do you think a fresh out of college kid is going to live in Rockwall and teach here? I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I would probably live in like a one-bedroom, one-bath
Well, yeah, they're not going to
apartment.
go buy a house.
Right. I'd probably live in a one-bedroom, one-bath apartment. And do I want a teacher who is fresh to the profession, who's having to drive somewhere else to live? Maybe they're driving 20 minutes away, 30 minutes away, 40 minutes away, you know, coming into school early, because we all know teachers go early and stay late.
They do.
We all know teachers take work home. You know, I'd love for them to live here. And I want to provide options for them to live right here in Rockwall where they work. And that's frustrating, because it does mean that we're building things that maybe we're building apartments, maybe we're building townhomes, maybe we're building condos. But people have got to take that into mind that, I mean, I just finished I'm a commercial real estate broker. I just finished a project over in a neighboring town where the rent bans for that multifamily project hit 83% of the city employees of that town. Police officers, firefighters, you know, public works, groundskeepers. 83% of the people who worked for that city could live in those apartments. And
the problem though is, when you live in an apartment, you're not paying property taxes.
well, but the apartments are.
Yeah, the apartment is.
Yeah,
yes.
the apartments are paying.
It comes out to much less.
It
than
does.
If it was,
It does. Well, it does, but it also, and that's what people need to understand too, is if, you know, people are saying, oh, we're building these big commercial developments. Well, those big commercial developments, a lot of them are paying property taxes. And so how many houses would we have to build to equal an HEB or an IKEA or, you know, technology park? Those people come in and they pay taxes on the property, they pay taxes on the inventory, they pay taxes on the business and personal property that's there, and it generates a lot more revenue than if I go put up 100 houses.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so there is responsible development and there's irresponsible development, and you can see evidences of that, you know, all over the place. But, you know, if you lived in Dallas for very long, you drive up to Frisco 20 years ago and you're driving down Preston Road and it's 3 lanes in every direction and it's farmland on either side, and you go, well, what on earth? But you drive up there now and it's 3 lanes in either direction, and they've got very specific development going on all up and down Preston Road, all up and down the toll road, and they've now built 11 5A high schools in Frisco.
Right.
You know, and they've done that in very systematic ways, you know. And I was up there the other day, and Frisco is doing the same thing that we're doing right now. They've got a bond and a Vader out right now in Frisco ISD. They did a portion of their Vader about 7 years ago, and they're doing the rest of it now. And I'm telling you, on every corner there was a vote yes, vote yes, vote yes, and very little opposition, because they know. And I think it's important for people to understand, like the Board of Trustees looked at this very methodically to say, look, if we're going to ask for more money, we're sending it all to teachers, or the bulk of it to teachers. And the things that the state makes us do that they don't give us any extra money for. If we're going to build all these other things, we're going to try to do it without asking the taxpayer to pay more money.
Okay, real quick, let's go to Proposition D then.
Yep.
And because we wanted to stay within an hour, we've blown that up.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
So Proposition D is stadium renovations, not a new stadium.
Correct.
A lot of people are saying we're building a new stadium. We're not. It's just renovations to the stadium we have.
Right.
New home and visitor locker rooms, multi-purpose space, expanded home concessions and restrooms, expanded stadium seating, new visitor concessions and restrooms, and replacing audio-visual equipment and the scoreboard. That is a total of just under $43 million for that.
Yep.
And a lot of people I know will come in and say, we don't need, that's athletics. That's not the important part.
Yeah.
No, it's not as important as elementary schools and things like that. But this is we all enjoy going to the games. We all enjoy the experience, Adam. It's something for me and you as broadcasters that it hits home. And I don't see on here, both of us wanted a chocolate fountain. I don't see that on there.
I was asking for chocolate and queso.
Right,
Just plug it into the wall. And
we've made a sacrifice. We took that off the bond.
We did.
Right. We made a sacrifice.
We're totally kidding, by the way.
And we have to admit, great sports programs bring people in.
They do.
That's the thing. That's your front porch. That's what they always say. Your sports programs are the front porch to your school.
And the band.
Especially in Texas. I mean, and we can't apologize for where we live, right?
Right.
That's what I'm tired of doing. I'm not going to apologize.
No, we can't apologize for where we live. And we have successful athletic, successful fine art programs all across this district. The last time the stadium was renovated, we had about 3,000 high school kids. Now we have 6,200.
We have doubled.
We've doubled.
Yeah.
And we haven't asked for anything to improve the stadium in almost 15 years.
No.
And so what people, I hope that they'll understand here is we're simply asking for the capacity to serve the number of kids who are already here.
Yeah.
What it does is that allows us to garner revenue from, I don't know if folks know, but, when the lower classifications 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A are in the playoffs and they need a bigger venue because you've got two big schools coming together to play a game, they are looking for a place where they can come and do that. And those folks come here, they pay our ticket prices, and then they go eat in our restaurants and they shop in our stores and they stay in our hotels, and they invest in our community passively because we've got a stadium that can host and track meets and soccer.
Let's get into that
tournaments.
Though. We right now can only host, I think, 4A and down.
We did do 5A last year, Forney and Lancaster.
Okay.
And it was, there was probably 16,000 people in a stadium that seats 12,500 or whatever it is.
At its maximum.
Yeah.
Because these renovations are needed because I know when our teams make the playoffs, when the Hawks or the Yellow Jackets make it in football, at times we will play at another 6A stadium. It's not unheard of. In fact, the majority of the time we will.
McKinney, the Star.
Yeah, exactly. But they cannot come here and play. We cannot host a 6A playoff game here because our visitor side is not large enough.
Yeah.
And there's a specific rules about that. So what we're doing on this is they're taking the track out, because another complaint about the stadium is that it's too far away. It's kind of a more canyon-like.
And this is what you worked on in your group.
Well, our group was a part of it. Okay. Yeah, not really worked on, but they had us. We had special interest in it because it was myself and some coaches and things like that. But the big thing that they're making on this one is, and it's because how many times do we have a lot of complaints about, man, we're too far away. The stadium's not intimate. We used to have an intimate stadium back in the day, the original Wilkerson Sanders. We don't anymore. The track's coming out, the field's coming closer, they're moving the visitor stands closer and larger. And they're also going to build, part of this is the visitor side will have a concession stand and better facility and restrooms, which they do not. Yeah. And so you should have that as a 6A program. Yeah. That should be a part of it.
It's another part of this proposal that we've gone as long as we can without doing this.
Yes.
And regrettably, we didn't know construction costs were going to inflate by 24%. Year over year. We didn't know that. Nobody knew that. And we're dealing with the tension between everybody saying, man, it cost me $3 for, or $5 for a dozen eggs and a gallon of milk and all that. I can't tell you how many times I get in fact, I literally just got the text, can you stop and get on the way home?
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I'm going, well, there's $100.
Right.
Right. We all know that. But
you have 35 kids to feed.
I do. One of them's at college, and I just pay the unlimited meal plan now, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
But all of that to say is, do we need a brand new stadium? No.
No.
Do we need McKinney spent $69 million, Prosper spent $94 million. We're asking for $42 million to bring everything up to speed, and we haven't asked for that for 15 years.
We've got a citizen. I want to play his question. I think it lines up with what we because this is it's been talked about a lot. This is Jeff Ivey out in Heath.
Hey Stan, this is Jeff Ivey. Hey, quick question for you. What's your thoughts on the proposition for all of the sports facilities? Kind of what are we needing? How do we compare versus some of our neighboring schools? I think it's important. I've got some kids in sports, but want to make sure that it's something we need because a lot of money. So can you help us kind of understand what facilities are needing upgrading and what that upgrade looks like?
Kind of like what we're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you look at it's maintenance at Wilkerson Sanders. I know there's going to be a little bit of money in there for our middle schools because you've got scoreboards that don't work. We're talking about upgrading lights to LEDs so that we're not using as much electricity to turn those lights on. Because and think about this too. You drive around pretty much 6 nights a week to the middle schools. And look at how many community members are using the stadium behind Williams Middle School or behind Kane Middle School for kindergarten all the way up to 6th grade, Little Jackets and Little Hawks practicing at those fields. These are community resources. These are things that people use. And I know that there's going to be some folks who go, well, then why do you charge us to rent the stadium? Well, it costs money to turn on the lights. It costs money for a groundskeeper to come and patch a track or to keep those things in good working order. And so there's got to be a balance there, and we want to make it available to the taxpayer, but we also can't incur a whole extra lot of cost to do that. But we want to make those things presentable for people to use them. And I mean, I've got a 5th grader playing football. We just finished the season, and we could get there at 8:30 in the morning for a game. We could get there at 4:30 in the afternoon for a game. And there had been games going on all day at that stadium, and we're making that available as a district resource. The same thing is true of Wilkerson Sanders, where that stadium can be available for the Super Bowl, for the city championships and those kinds of things. Our middle school players play there. Our high school our JVs play there. Our soccer teams play there. We're talking about taking out the track, but up to this point, track has used that. Your bands use it for practices throughout the year because they go and play at competitions.
And the drill teams.
Yeah, your drill teams, your color guards, your high steppers and stingerettes are out there. And, otherwise they're at their campuses practicing on a parking lot. Well, that's not where their performances are. They're on turf. And so they go and practice there. So by comparison, and there's 2 points here, we're not asking for a new stadium, and there's nothing in the foreseeable future that says we're going to ask for a new stadium because we don't need it. And we're not going to need it for the foreseeable future. The second thing is, in this total bond package, we're asking for less than 5 cents on the dollar of this total bond package to improve Wilkerson Sanders, to bring it up to speed, to bring it up to the level that is comparable with everything else that we do in this district. And again, not going to apologize for where we live, not going to apologize for how successful our kids are and how they dominate on multiple fronts in multiple programs, and we just want them to have facilities that match what they're already doing.
Well, and that's what I want to bring up, because I've gotten the counter, which is like our Rockwall Gymnastics does outstanding, and we don't have good facilities for gymnastics, and they've won state. The boys have. Girls are right there for state. Our football teams are always doing well. Baseball teams are unbelievable. Yep. All of our team sports do incredible. Then even the individual sports. I mean, we are always in the playoff race, the playoff hunt, looking for a championship. So they're like, well, if they're doing it without these great facilities, why do we need to give them great facilities? Because you can't maintain that. You want people, when their kids are looking, when they want to play a sport or be involved with this, and then we're talking drill team, we're talking band, we're talking all that too. You want to have the facilities that they deserve, like what Jeff was saying there. He's got kids coming up. I want my kids to have, I'm not saying that they need to have, like they're at Notre Dame or something.
Taj Mahal.
Yeah. But they need, like right now, as a broadcaster, you're in the same format with me. when we go to other stadiums, it is amazing the level of technology they have there compared to ours now, because we have not improved anything in, what'd you say, 15 years?
Yeah, 2009.
You come to our stadium now, like our scoreboard doesn't work now, other than the numbers to show the score.
I was noticing.
Yeah, we don't have a video board that works anymore. The lights don't work on it as well anymore, and in fact, they've had to fix that. You go up in the press box, there's a lot of issues there. Here, I know that the home and visitor locker rooms are subpar.
They're 4A size.
They are, exactly. Yeah. And so, and we need to expand the seating if we want to bring in all these other. We make money if playoff games are being played here, and so that's why it's important. We're not asking for this because we just want to look, cool and have the best facilities as a big contest. It's needed. We're a 6A school. Our gym, we can't host anything in either school's gym. Yeah. Basketball tournaments, gymnastics, all these things. We can have the wrestling tournament there, but that's about it. Because we have not been able. These are still the same gyms that we built 30 years ago or 20 years ago. Yeah. And what happened was Rockwall built their gyms, their gym. I don't say plural. It's just 3 floors. But you lose 2 floors if you expand the stands to watch a main game. Heath built the exact same thing 10 years later after Rockwall did it. Okay, which that means they have the same facilities we do. Right. Yeah. You would like to think 10 years later, okay, we can do some. They didn't.
And so that people are clear, Proposition B does have some not athletic facilities, but on the campuses,
they do
locker rooms.
Yes.
Things that will help us expand for these programs that are overcrowded. There's some renovations that will happen on the high school campuses that will help us to bring those things up. They're not in Proposition D because they're not exclusive to athletics.
Right.
As far as and I misspoke. Let me walk back. Proposition D is stadiums. It's not just athletics, it's stadiums. You have to put a stadium on its own proposition. But we can, at the campus level, we can, build new locker rooms, we can build new gyms and things for the day-to-day function on those campuses under Proposition B.
We are so subpar with our on-campus gyms compared to others. When our teams make the playoffs, we'll go to we go to, was it Jarrett? It's a 2A school, I think, maybe 3A. It is unbelievable. I'm not saying we need, like you said, a Taj Mahal, but we need, if a 3A school can host 6A teams to play in the playoffs there, but we can't host anybody.
These are the things we want for our kids.
Yeah. We want for our kids, and we want to be able to have access for others. And like Stan made a great point, these facilities are also used by everybody too. Yeah. It's everybody. I live right off the square. Every night during this time of year, I hear the PA. Something's going on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I mean, you hear something happening. Yeah. It's being used. Yeah. And so we're not asking for something just to keep up with McKinney. We'll never keep up with McKinney and Allen and all those things. We don't want to.
And we don't want to. That's right. And so I want people to understand, like, there's so much thought that has gone into this bond proposal from the 60-plus people who sat in those 8 meetings, over the course of April to June or March to June last year, and they asked some hard questions. I mean, y'all picked it apart.
We had some knockdown, drag out discussions.
Yeah, I mean, when they brought the original proposal to the board, we took $217 million out of it immediately. I mean, we reduced it by almost 22%, 23% immediately. Nope, because we didn't want it to have an impact on the tax rate. And so I will say to everybody listening, like, I can't do anything about your property values. I can't, and unfortunately the board meetings of RCAD, I don't believe those are public, open to the public, but it's something where you protest your taxes every year. You want to try to bring your values down, and I get that. I mean, I do it.
There is something you can actually do.
Yeah, I mean, I got into an argument with RCAD year before last about my property values, and but understand they're living within the state mandated legislated requirements that they have to live in, and so is the school district. And we're not asking. The district had to go through an outside, independent, third-party audit, efficiency audit, in order to even authorize the Vader and the bond going onto the ballot. And the results of that are posted on the website. You can go read them yourself and look at how we spend money compared to other districts around us, what we take in compared to other districts around us, and what we're doing for students day in and day out. And the impact of that. And I think a real-life example that people should relate to is Wiley Independent School District is almost exactly the same size as Rockwall from a student perspective. They've passed a Vader. They have access to those funds. They have about 200 more teachers, 200 more support staff compared to what Rockwall has because of things like the Vader. So you're talking about 10 to 12% more workforce for the same amount of students. And so, I mean, I would encourage people, you think about your campus and, if you've got a kid who is pre-K through 5th grade in Rockwall ISD, there's a good chance that your child's class is above the state mandate for teacher-student ratio. We had to file 39 waivers for class sizes from pre-K through 5th grade across the entire district. And so what would that look like if we had, an extra teacher on your campus, or 2 teachers on your campus, or 4 teachers on your campus?
Well, and I want to address that because when I taught, that was one thing it shocked me was there's not a lot of people applying to be substitutes either.
Right.
There's a low number there.
Right.
So like if you needed time off for something, every teacher has to go in, you go into the program and you put in for your substitute. There's a lot of times it's like there's nobody available. So you have to have another teacher come in and watch your class a lot. I would have to watch another class. That we're sitting, not only are the teachers teaching their classes, a lot of times our teachers are not necessarily teaching, but they're at least watching, sometimes teaching. They have to take during we get conference times. Well, a lot of teachers don't get conference times because they got to go watch another class because of the minimal amount of people that we have teaching right now, that we can't have more teachers. That is something that's desperate for our schools too, that these teachers they're getting worked to death on things, and not even just watching classes, but teachers have requirements to be at certain places and work the stadiums or take kids different places, all that stuff. It's a lot that you're not getting paid extra for most of the time, and you're still getting this bare bones salary that and so this is a really important. I think. Did you say you had another question?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of shift gears a little bit, and this is something we're hearing a lot about, and that is this back and forth of the state is keeping money hostage, and we're the ones that wouldn't agree to take it because we were going to punish them for the
ESAs,
school choice,
vouchers and school choice.
I want to hear your take on that.
Yeah, so 2023 there was a proposition, and it was actually a priority that that voters passed in 2022, that we wanted to see school choice in Texas, and I believe it's something like 84% or 86% 87% of House District 33, so Rockwall County, voted in favor of school choice. I was one of those people, by the way. Voted in favor of school choice.
Me too.
Yeah, and because I believe it's a parent's right to choose where their child goes to school, and I think everybody should have that right. It should be a protected right, and so I fully agree. 2023, they put forward a bill for funding ESAs, educational spending accounts, or what we kind of colloquially call the voucher program. Okay. And so to give it some context, coming out of 2021 and 2022, when we were all spending all that money that we made during COVID, the state had a $32.6 billion sales tax surplus in the state. So the coffers of the state legislature were $32 billion ahead. So school districts came to the state and said, look, you've got all this money. We'd like for you to increase the basic allotment. And the amount was about $5.5 billion statewide. If they increased the basic allotment to somewhere between $6,800 and $7,000 per student, it's currently $6,160, that we thought that was going to cost about $5.5 billion. Didn't happen. It was put out there. It got shot down a couple of times. And then the ESA funding was also on that same bill. And, school districts went to their legislators and said, look, we don't think this is fiscally responsible, because what the state was proposing is that was paid for out of that sales tax surplus. Well, what do you do when you don't have a $32 billion sales tax surplus? How do you pay for that? So there were questions about the fiscal responsibility. And that's a conservative thing, right? We're known for being fiscally responsible and fiscally conservative. So how do you pay for that when you don't have that money? The other thing was the question of accountability. Are the people receiving these state tax dollars going to be held to the same level of accountability as your local school district? Because they look through every penny that we spend. In fact, you can go to the district's website and look at the district's check registry. It's updated every month. You can go look at every check that the district writes. And, we've got reporting and all that kind of stuff. So if you're receiving tax dollars, are you going to be held to the same standard as everybody who receives tax dollars? You know, so that we can say you're being accountable, you're doing the right thing with those monies. Because right now, charter schools, they don't have to go out for a vote to take out money, take out a bond. A charter school can go get a bond and spend it however they want. And if they don't have the money to pay it off, they can go pass another bond to pay off that bond. There's real life examples of that where, you know, they take out credit and don't have enough, so they take out more credit to pay off that credit. So the school districts were just saying, look, we're not saying don't do it. We're just saying make sure the playing field is level. That so, if you're going to hand out people's tax dollars, that you're holding them accountable the same way that you hold everyone else who receives tax dollars accountable. And then the last thing is they put some things in place to qualify for a voucher. You had income requirements or thresholds. You had your local school district had to be poor performing, low performing, you know, and that was a moving target throughout legislature of, you know, well, who's going to qualify and how are they going to do it? And it came out, the final one that finally died in the fourth special session, that the most that they could do was about 250,000 students in Texas. Well, that's about 5% of Texas public schools, about 5.5 million students in Texas public schools. And so it just, the program kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and it's going to cost more and more and more. And you had folks just going like, look, this is just it's not well thought out. We need some more accountability. And if we're going to pass it, it just needs to reflect what we ask everyone else to do who receives tax dollars.
So for those that would say the statement that is, as we know, I think school districts were notoriously against ESAs.
In the form that was presented in 2023, school districts were against it.
But we have people saying, no, the real hostage was set by the school districts because they were not going to go with the ESAs, so they left They left a whole lot of money on the floor, and now we're going to tax Rockwall citizens because we didn't take that money.
And that's not.
What's
true.
Your response?
And that's not. It's not true because, as I mentioned very early on, the only thing that increases the amount of money that Rockwall gets is the number of students enrolled in the district.
Okay.
It's not how much money we collect. It's not where how much taxes we get. The only thing that changes the revenue is the number of enrolled students.
So this is you're saying like a twist on the truth.
It is very much a twist on the truth. And I hope that people will believe me. I mean, there's no reason for you to not believe me on it. I did a ton of research before. I mean, one of my very best friends in the world is our state representative back home, House District 81. And he and I had hours of conversations about this because he voted for it, you know, for the legislature to pass it. And I was like, man, what are you doing? And he said, well, I've got districts out here who they need that money. They need, and the people in my district, they would qualify for an ESA. And so, you know, you're looking at different parts of the state, and things are performing differently in different parts of the state.
And our job is to take care of us.
That's right. Yeah. Our job is to basically look at this from the standpoint of, you know, if you're going to hold everybody to a standard who receives tax dollars, then hold everybody to that standard. You know, if you're going to hold some of us, hold all of us. All of it. And so, and I think it's a point that people need to understand is we're not against ESAs or vouchers. I was against how they were presented in the 2023 legislature. And it may look different in 2025, and we may be able to get fully behind it because it you know, the playing field's level and everybody is held accountable. And if you're going to spend my tax dollars, I want you to be as accountable as what my local school district is. And the last thing I'll say about it is this. People are saying, well, I'm going to take my property tax dollars and they're going to follow the student. There wasn't anything in that bill, to my knowledge, that would allow you to redirect your property. You were still going to pay your property taxes, but you were going to get some money from a sales tax surplus in order to take that to a private school, charter school, home school, whatever the case may be. So, you know, people need to understand they were still going to get in your pocket, but you might just get a little bit of money from another avenue. And my concern is, what do you do when you don't have a $33 billion sales tax surplus? How do you fund that? You know, where does that money come from? And no one could answer well, what happens in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years or 10 years? How are we going to pay for that? So, and that's what I think everybody should be asking. And that's, I mean, if you think about it, that's what people are asking us here. how are you going to pay for this in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Well, we see roofs going up and kids are moving in, and the only thing that changes the pot of money that we get is the number of kids enrolled in the district.
And that's my overall take of it. I'm going to vote for all of this. Yes, absolutely. I like I said, not only do I feel like our kids deserve it, they do need it. A lot of it is needed. And I think if there's money to be spent, spending it on our schools is the number one thing we can do.
Yeah.
I just hope, we have to put a lot of trust in you guys.
Sure.
Because I'm not even close to understanding the financial part of how's that going to work, who's going to pay for it. Yeah. Is it going to put us into big trouble 3 years and we're going to be like, why did we do that?
Yeah.
But right now I'm saying if they need it, if they're saying they need it, and we want good schools and we want a great town, we've got to vote for it. I don't know how you could not.
I agree.
Yeah, and to put it back out there, people understanding that you're not writing us, if this passes November 6th, we're getting a check for $849 million.
Right.
No, it's.
I want to know who's going to write that
check. Right. No, it's, hey guys, it's growing. We need to build this elementary school, and that's going to cost $50 million. And we may say, look, we need to sell $200 million right now because we've got 5 projects that are going to cost that much money.
I like your comparison to a line of credit.
That's right. That's right. And helping people understand, and I do want to make this point too. You've got a lot of people going, we got to do away with property taxes. We got to do away. We're taxed out of our homes, and believe me, I feel it too. And I genuinely mean that. I just got the notice in the mail.
I did too, and I'm like,
my mortgage statement. They said your property taxes are going up, and I was like, oh, great. Well, my house payment just went up. And I don't. Yeah. I have to make that decision too. But what people have to remember is your city government is funded by your property taxes. Your county government is funded by your property taxes. In a lot of places, your fire, your EMS, your police is funded by your property taxes. Your public schools are obviously by your property taxes. There are many places around here where the hospital is funded by property taxes. Your community colleges are funded by property taxes. So if we do away with property taxes, they're just going to replace it with something else to pay for all of those things. It's not going to go away where you get to keep that money in your pocket, because they're going to turn around and go, well, hey, instead of that, we can be like Louisiana and you've got a 6% personal income tax, or we can be like Oklahoma and you've got a percentage of a personal income tax. There's not a way to pay for these services without some form of everybody paying in a small portion. And I know what that sounds like to fiscal conservative. Everybody pays in a small portion and we all benefit from the whole.
Yeah.
So if you're saying you don't want to pay an additional property tax for these bonds, well then stop paying insurance premiums, because that's how those work. Go divest yourself of municipal bonds out of your 401k and your retirement plans, because you're benefiting on the back end of it. Anything that you do that is a cooperative of any kind, so like your electrical, many of us in our county pay an electrical cooperative. Hey, stop doing that, because you're paying a small portion for the benefit of the whole, and we're simply bringing that to the forefront here for public schools.
All right. Do we have another question, or are we set?
That sums it up for me.
I think so. I mean, I know we planned on going an hour. We went a bit over.
That's all right.
But we got great information. Yes.
Very great information.
Yeah, and great job, Stan.
You actually know what you're talking about.
Well, it's something, this is personal. I got 4 kids in the district. My youngest is a 4th grader. When we talk about building buildings that are going to last, 7 to 10 years, that's the lifespan of my kids in the district.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not the only one. I also know there are people who go, well, man, my kids graduated 10 years ago and I shouldn't have to pay for this. Well, what I would challenge you is a quote that I try to live by, is sometimes you're going to plant trees whose shade you never sit under.
Right.
Because there were people who planted trees whose shade I'm sitting under now.
Right.
And we all have that responsibility to the fabric of our society to say, there are going to be things that I pay for now that I may never see the benefit of. And by and large, the cost of your child's education far exceeds what you paid in property taxes. The other thing I'll say is, if you are over 65, this will not impact you one bit. Your taxes are frozen at age 65. This has zero impact to your taxes.
The tax rate's also frozen?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rate
So
and
the amount that they pay will not change from when you turn 65. And so if you're over 65, this is simply a yes or a no vote for the fabric of your community.
Right.
And that's going to be the majority of voters are going to already have frozen.
Knowing not majority. It's a lot, though.
And what's scary is I feel like I'm approaching
we're getting close, Billy. We're getting there.
I hope that people will look at our teachers who show up every single day, who do a fantastic job, who prepare our kids to be successful in the things that we're watching them succeed. You know, we're graduating. I mean, last year we graduated 99.97% of our high schools. Yeah. You know, it's phenomenal. The kids are going on to major accomplishments in college and career and military. You know, and so if you can look at a teacher, you can look at the kid who lives down the street from you and say, I just can't do it. You know, and some people will, and that's your right. You know, and I hope you will look at the whole picture and make a decision with good, solid, factual information about what's actually happening in the district every day.
All right. Yeah, that's a great way to sum it up, because there are a lot of people that or a number of people that are against it, and I see their side on it.
I do too.
But
I want them to be heard.
And I want them to be heard. I don't want this to be a pro only, and so we want their side of it as best as we could here. But I fall on the side of this is an extremely important vote. And if I understand it right, I just checked. There's also a presidential campaign going on that we're voting on.
That'll help. I'm sure they're all there for the school vote, but they may, while they're there.
I hadn't heard anything about those campaigns, so I hope everything's going well in the presidential campaign. But anyway, Autumn went to vote today, and she said the line was just outrageous.
Yeah, I waited about a half an hour. Just waiting in line.
Yeah. So that's good news that a lot of folks are getting out there. So that's great. That's great.
Thanks, guys, for having me on.
You bet.
Appreciate the opportunity.
That was really good. Yeah. All right.
And
there's our special edition of Rock 30.
That was a special edition.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
Yeah, we are back. We got a lot of stuff lined up. We just kind of needed a breather, and we're ready to roll.
Did you enjoy your break?
It ain't over yet, is it? We have a little bit more of a break, don't we, coming up?
Well, yeah.
Okay. I've enjoyed it. Well, one reason we can't do it is because you're every Friday night going to watch Stingerettes and
you're
all
there.
That. And I'm doing football, and Stan's there doing football.
I have missed you, I have to say.
I've missed you, not in a purely heterosexual
Sorry, guys.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you all reminisce here.
Yeah, like, wow. This just took a turn. I don't think we can get back on the highway after this turn.
That's right. Anyway, back to football on Friday night. Right.
How about that game? That was a good game. Yeah, but anyway,
it was, actually.
It really was. It turned out to be a really good one. But anyway, thank you, Stan.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
all right. See y'all next time.
See ya.